call the meeting to order, and we'll show 5 selectmen are present. Is Mr. Eunice present?
I am.
Okay. Okay. First order of business is appointments and resignations. And the first is to vote to appoint Sandra Olahead as the representative for Southeastern Regional Planning and Economic Development District Commission. So this would be a reappointment. So the chair would entertain a motion to move the appointment of Sandy.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. We'll go to the vote. Renee?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Second business under appointments and reappointments is a vote to reappoint Daniel Doyle to the Conservation Commission. Chair would entertain a motion to reappoint Daniel Doyle to the Conservation Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. Renee?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay. Next order of business is under licenses and permits. And the first order of business is a vote to amend the one-day all alcohol liquor license to Colleen Robichaud for a private event to be held at the Everett Leonard Park from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. by changing the date from June 20th, 2020 to July 11th, 2020. Chair would entertain a motion to so move.
So moved. Nope.
In a second.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion, questions? Hearing none, we will go to the vote. Renee?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I also will vote yes. The second order of business was in case we had any liquor license holders who might want to amend their license to include outside seating. And unless Mr. Units has
We have
received
3.
one. Okay.
We have 3. The first one is Bog Iron, and I was fortunate enough to catch Brian in the shot. So Brian is putting tables out front, and so he can have some outside seating.
Okay. So, does anyone have any questions about the whole process? And
Brett, this is Renee, if
yes,
I may.
Renee.
So I don't have a question about the process. Mike, I just wondered in your conversation with him, because I did drive past that today and I saw it. Is he aware too of the flexibility on the parking, the minimum parking requirement that we discussed?
He is, yes.
Because it didn't seem like a lot of seating up front.
Well, I know Brian, I think Brian might be on if you have any questions from him, but he has to keep the tables separated also. You know, even though it's outside, they have to be
Right.
so far apart.
And I am here. I'm on. So
Okay.
we won. It was just kind of coincidence, a lucky coincidence that space out front. If you space the tables out, we have a maximum seating of 6 per table. If you have to keep them 6 feet apart, the head count actually comes out to 49 or 50 people, which is our current head count capacity in our current tap room, and that's really dictated by our wastewater situation. So we're keeping our head count exactly the same. We're not allowed to have any consumption inside the building. So, like I said, it's just kind of a transfer of the exact same headcount from the outside, from the inside to the outside.
Super. Does anyone else have any further questions?
Thank you, Brian. Sorry, Jack.
This topic, but just to clarify a provision on Bog's license, they are allowed to open on election days, correct? I think they had been told previously that they were not, but
They are.
Yeah, I had caught Mike on that, and thanks for the clarification. It really wasn't a big deal for us. It's a little bit of a quirk of the way the writing or the language on the liquor licenses actually reads, but Mike and I had caught up on that, so I appreciate it.
very good. Yeah, I figured with the shift to Saturdays, that'd be a bit more impactful than a Tuesday night.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Any further questions? If not, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the amended liquor license for Bog Iron.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. If there are no further questions, go to the vote. Renee,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I'll also vote yes. Okay. Mr. Units, what other?
The
Yes.
next one is Sabatino's. And, can you see that? Am I sharing that picture? I'm not.
Sure. Yeah, great
No.
picture of yourself.
What's that?
Great picture of yourself.
Okay, I'm not sharing it. So, I'll just show you. Sabatino's, has, there's Brian again. I lost Sabatino's. Well, Sabatino's has put a tent out front, for their seating. I don't know if any of you have driven by and seen that.
I saw it.
I went by today and noticed that it was enclosed. Does that have any effect on?
It does. When it's enclosed, they can only have 50% of the capacity that normally they would have in the tent.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions?
Mike, do you know, do they have the ability to open it up? Because I saw that too when I went past today.
They do. It's just closed because of the rain today.
Okay, so if they have it closed, then they're gonna go 50%. If they keep it open, then they'll go the full capacity that they can within the tent.
Yes. They hope.
And they're aware of those restrictions.
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? If not, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the amended license for Sabatino's.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further questions? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. Renee,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I also will vote yes. Okay, Mike?
And the third amended license request is Kelly's, and they want to put 3 tables out on the sidewalk. They currently have tables on their porch outside, and they're looking to add 3 more on the sidewalk.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions regarding Kelly's?
Mike, the sidewalk, like by the road sidewalk?
No, right off of their balcony.
The sidewalk onto the parking lot, like?
Right,
Up against the building?
yes.
Okay.
There's still enough space if they do that to have fun.
Say that again, Jack. Enough space?
Is there still enough space for people to walk by if they're doing that?
Yeah, there'll be a lane, coned off right outside those tables that'll be wide enough to handle any access and handicap accessibility.
Any further questions? If not, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the license for Kelly's.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, if there's no further questions, we go to the vote. Renee?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'll also vote yes. So that's unanimous. Okay. And that's the only three we have right now, Mr. Yonitz, correct?
It is. Yep.
Okay. Next order of business is the announcements. Does anyone have any announcements? I don't hear anyone. I think the only thing I want to do is remind people that a week from Saturday is election day, and it's at the middle school. I have to think about it. I know where it is. I have to make sure I get the right name.
Mr. Chairman, we should be sending out one of those reverse 911 to remind everybody of the new election date and the town meeting date.
I believe she will. We'll make sure she does that. She's also, I don't know if she's been on cable yet or not. I know she was being interviewed by cable too.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, I mean, both the dates and the place, because I remember when we moved from the yellow school to the high school, how confused people were trying to figure out where they were supposed to go to vote.
Yeah, I think she was waiting till closer to the election to let people know.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions regarding that? Okay. And I assume there's no other announcements? In that case, we'll move on to new business and an update on COVID-19.
Yep, the health agent has let me know he's not on tonight, but currently Norton has had 159 cases, 151 are out of isolation and on the road to recovery, and unfortunately Norton has experienced 5 deaths due to COVID-19. Town Hall still remains closed. We will be open for all the employees to start coming back on Monday, and every employee will have to watch a safety video, and we'll begin working on a plan, hopefully to gradually start opening, see how we're going to open to allow public in July. But right now, it would just still be employees.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions regarding town hall opening?
I have a question, Brad. It's Renee.
Yes.
Mike, so you said that it's going to be open for every employee to come back Monday. Is it going to be mandatory for them to come back, or are you allowing folks to continue working remotely?
We have to allow some because we have at least 3 employees that are hit with daycare issues, so they will have to do a combination, some days in and some days home, and same with the other employees too. And we can't have all the employees in the Board of Health office at once because there's not enough room in there. So.
And then what about others who either have concerns with, their own health because of being in a high-risk group, or they have a family member within their household that does?
I haven't heard from any of them with those concerns. Obviously, any concerns like that would take into consideration.
And I know that in Jen's office, the barrier, I don't know what you call it, the plexiglass barriers are up. Have all the offices been fitted that way?
They have. Any office that has space like that, accounting, Jen's office, town clerk, treasurer, Board of Health, conservation, assessors, inspectional services, everyone has had them installed.
Okay. Any other
And
questions?
yep, Brad, I have a couple more.
Yep.
Mike, can I ask, and I thought we talked about this a little last week, but maybe not, but have we experienced any sort of disruption or, loss of services to people while we've been working remote?
I haven't heard one complaint. It seems like everything, people have been taking care of the business.
So can I just ask, and only because I was, like, one of the recent press conferences that the governor had was, really, really voicing the concern that if employees can work remotely, that they continue to work remotely. I mean, it seems like if there's no need for them to be there and work's going on, while we're still able to serve the community, like, I worry more, and I don't know what the message was going out, but I worry more about putting folks back if we don't have to, because we have an alternate way to meet the needs, right? Just given the recommendations, given that, things, again, the more people go out, the more that the numbers are going to go up, we know that, but just curious on why really the move to get people back in town hall if we don't have to, especially based on the guidance from the governor that where remote capabilities exist, we should continue leveraging them.
Because we haven't had any complaints from residents that things aren't getting done, but still, there are a lot of things that they have to be in here to do, each department. So they don't have to be in here constantly, but they do have to be in.
So they have options to come in for a couple hours a day or come in 1 or 2 days a week and then continue with remote work?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mike.
And today, we have filed for our deficit spending request for unforeseen COVID expenses with the Department of Revenue, and also filed under the CARES Act to receive reimbursement for those expenses. Those are just expenses for this current fiscal year.
Now, the CARES Act that we heard we were getting, is that separate from this?
That CARES Act, that's this money we had to apply to the Department of Revenue to be able to deficit spend, and then the CARES Act we've applied to receive the funding to cover the deficit.
At a later date, though.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions? I don't hear any.
Thank you.
So, okay. The next item on the agenda is a vote to disband the Town Common Revitalization Committee, which has done an excellent job. When I used to be in school and I was a band geek, I spent at least 2 holidays a year on the Common, and even back a couple of years ago when I was there, it never looked as good as it does now. It's a totally different place, and they did a wonderful job. Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
No, just, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I just want to make a comment. Not only did they do an excellent job, but I believe it was entirely paid for by donations and volunteer labor. Is that correct, Mike?
It is.
Yeah. So, it makes it even more
Donations and volunteer.
Yeah, it's really remarkable the difference in the look of that part of town, and it was all funded through no finances to the town. So, well,
Yeah, the only funding was for the fence.
I take back everything I just said.
But even that's extraordinary, because they nickel and dime the people, and I think it ended up being probably at least half of what they originally thought it was going to take to replace that. So, they did an outstanding job, and what we did spend for the fence itself, it was, at first, it was almost, looked like it was going to be impossible to rebuild the fence. And I remember at first they were looking at options that didn't include replicating the old fence because of the expense, but they found a way to. So yeah, no, excellent job. So if there's no other discussion or.
Brad, can I ask a question?
Sure.
What's the process for who would maintain it from this point without the group that's put together now?
It would be the highway department.
Okay. And then same thing with funding at this point? And I only ask because as I was driving by the other day, I realized that like the paint, it looks exceptional there, but the paint around the bottom of the gazebo is, just needs repainted. Right? I don't know if it's been hit with something or what, but so I didn't know like how that process takes place, but certainly don't want to, have it ignored after all that work and money was put into it.
I'm sure if Keith Silver hears you mention it, that he'll be down there if he has to paint it on his hands and knees himself. So, did you want to comment on that, Mr. Units?
Nope, Keith will, I'm sure he will address anything that has to be done there.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions, concerns, comments?
Brad, it's Jack. Just
Yes. Yes, Jack.
Recognize the efforts of everyone involved and thank them, and appreciate all the donations and volunteer hours that went into revitalizing that. It looks great, and you did an awesome job.
Yeah. I wish I could get them to come down and take care of my yard. But all those things being said, now they've done their job. Chair would entertain a motion to disband the Town Common Revitalization Committee.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. If there's no further comment, we'll go to the vote. Renee?
Yes?
Mary?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I also will vote yes. Okay. Now a discussion on town meeting logistics.
The main reason I put that on there, I know the last time we set the town meeting, we set a rain date. Almost every town that I know that has had outside meetings did not get tents, and that's why the rain date. And I just wanted to get the board's opinion on whether we need to get a tent or not.
My personal opinion, especially where we're going to have it early in the morning, I can't see, especially this time, in this fiscal constraints, spending the money on a tent. And especially if the meeting is going to be relatively short, if we're only acting on financial issues. But that's just my opinion. So anyone else like to voice their opinion?
Mike, have you seen a response from Lauren on the question on the zoning articles?
I did.
I don't think she copied me in her response.
Oh, okay. Basically, let me find it. It was the same thing that we had talked about before. You have to go through the same process, and then the town moderator has to make the recommendation. And she didn't respond to the question about the town moderator has to make the recommendation to refer them back for further study or suggest that. But she did not respond to the question about, well, what if someone moves them on the floor? I don't know, I'll wait till I hear from her, but I would imagine that someone could do that, and we just have to, hopefully the people would agree with the recommendation that's made to send them back for further study.
Well, so I think that's the concern, and I'd almost like until we get that answer back, and then the answer on your question on whether or not we'd have to hold another public hearing and do the notifications. Because if those stay and if there's a chance that they're moved, I mean, I remember her saying that, you know, we can communicate to everybody that her recommendation was to keep them on the warrant, and communicate to everybody that they would not be heard or moved because we'd refer them back. But just want to make sure that that's the case, because, you know, if there's any question that it might be moved, then we might have a lot more people showing up.
I will push her on that again.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Does anyone disagree with me and think that we should go to the expense of putting the tents up?
No, I mean, I think we should, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think we should take a look at the weather at the beginning, middle of the week. And if it looks like it's going to be disastrous, then, you know, we adjust at that point. But I agree. I don't, time of day and time of year, I don't think it's necessary.
Anyone else wish to be heard?
I mean, like I said, Brad, until we know what's going on with the zoning articles, I wouldn't want to make a decision on whether or not we get a tent.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would agree. I think if we have the ability to wait before locking in, let's do that. I would lean more towards tent just for safety's sake, but I understand there's a pretty high cost to do that, and it does seem silly to try to do that if we're going to have a shorter meeting, actually with the rain date. So,
yeah. So my opinion being that as far as safety and with the COVID and everything, I would think that if you put a tent, it's more restrictive of airflow, and you'd be better off out in the open. So you'd be safer for airflow, or what, I don't know the exact term, but you'd be better off for fresh air supply. But I'm not an expert, as you can tell, because I can't tell you the proper way to say it.
Mike, do you know what kind of a drop dead date would be to secure one, and or if we put a deposit in to get the deposit back?
I'll check and get back to you at the beginning of the week on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else want to voice an opinion, and that will move on. Okay. And we can move on to review and or vote on town meeting articles and the FY 2021 budget.
If I could just put the list up anyways. Can you see the list?
No.
I'm not sharing that.
You don't like to share, do you?
I'm terrible at this.
It could be worse. I could be running this.
There you go.
All right. Is that up?
Yes.
Okay. If we could, the first article is Article 2 on the warrant, Chapter 90, and this article is to accept any funds that the state will provide us under the Chapter 90 program. I just heard today that the House and Senate agreed to add 100 million more to the Chapter 90 than last year, but they have not voted how what our number is going to be yet. We don't know the number, so I can't give you that.
Isn't the Chapter 90 typically a certain amount per mile or something like that?
Yeah, they take the amount of money, so they're adding another 100 million, so there'll be 300 million in the pot. And then they spread that out based on the amount of miles of roadways they have to cover,
Okay.
public accepted roads.
Anyone else have any questions? If not, Chair would entertain a motion to approve or support Article 2.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, we go to a vote. Renee?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay.
The next article is Article 5, Tree Services. And the Finance Committee did vote in support of this with 25,000 coming out of free cash. Excuse me. So this money is what Keith uses when he has to hire a crane to help take down larger trees.
Anyone have any questions?
Mike, I'm trying to find the budget info that I had from last week. Is for this particular one, is it 25,000 that's being budgeted, or is it just 25,000 of the total being budgeted is coming from free cash?
25,000 is coming from free cash for this one line item, this article, tree services.
So what's the total expected, or what's the total request for tree services?
25,000.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, Chair would entertain a motion to support Article 5 for $25,000.
So moved.
Second.
Renee?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay.
And the next article is the water enterprise budget. This is Article 6. And the Finance Committee did vote to approve this last night. So just some of the main points in the budget, the main increases obviously are due to the new water treatment plant. So their salaries are up $249,770 for the extra staff for the treatment plant. And the debt and interest is up $582,981.95. And also, this has positions in there that still have to be filled. We have 3 applicants right now. We're looking at, one is a foreman, and the other is an assistant superintendent. And the assistant superintendent, $58,847 of the superintendent's salary will be attributed to water.
Anyone have any questions on the water enterprise budget?
Mike, can you send this out as well? I don't think we have the detail.
Okay, yep.
Was this in that spreadsheet from last week?
Yeah, we should. I mean, I've got the copy. I assume it's correct.
Well, maybe it's in the packet and I just.
I can send it again, it's no problem.
So Mike, is this just, their operating budget?
Yes. Operating and debt. Just for water.
And what's the, I know there was some conversation, I don't know if it was at last night's meeting or another meeting, about the position. So the new position that's being added, is that a required position?
Yes, it wasn't filled last year. And then they have to staff the plant. that's why the salaries have gone up because of the staffing at that
Right.
point.
So if I understand correct, are using staff from, is it Weston Sampson to run the plant until it is staffed up?
Yeah, I don't know if they're still using any Weston Sampson. They may be there as advisors, but our department is running it mostly.
Where would that line item be on here for like consultancy?
Say that again.
Like
For
where would their
consult-
consultant, professional services?
Yeah. Yep. Engineering, 65,000 for engineering. And what you see highlighted in yellow is the transfer. This is the interfund operating transfer. So this is what they pay to the town for services that are provided to them through the town.
And Mike, how much for this, what we're seeing right now on the screen, what's this total? I can't tell if that says 4.5 or 4.6 million. Is this, how much of this actually comes out of the town budget versus what comes out of their water and sewer rates?
None of this comes out of the town budget. This all comes out of water rates.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, Chair would entertain a motion to support Article 6, the water enterprise budget.
Moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we go to the vote. Renee?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, students?
Okay, is the sewer budget up there now for you?
Yes.
All right, this is the sewer enterprise budget. The only increases here, 11,000 in salaries, $26,154 of the assistant superintendent's salary would be in this budget. And chemicals went up 5,000, and treatment plant costs up 30,000. That's that's the sewer department's payment to the MFN, and then debt service $17,000.
Okay. Any
And
questions?
none of this comes out of the town. This is all by the ratepayers.
And Mike, you said treatment plants cost, is that the specific line item?
Yeah, where you see treatment plant costs, that's the MFN assessment to Norton. The $893,000.
I think,
Everybody find what they're looking for? Are there any other questions? If not, Chair would entertain a motion to support Article 7, the sewer enterprise budget.
So moved.
Second.
There are no further questions. Renee,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I also vote yes. Thank you. Mr. Units.
The next article is capital. The capital committee had to come back and meet again after everything broke. Capital had finished, and we were being a little more ambitious than we are right now. But we came back together, and the concern was to scale back on what we were spending on capital. Because as you'll see when we go through the capital, there are a lot of payments that we have on vehicles that will continue next year. And we wanted to make sure we had money in capital to cover those for the following fiscal year in case we're not able to add any more money to capital. So with that, the capital committee is recommending $16,500. And that will be spent from the data processing department for replacement of our cyber security that we have right now and virus protection. $60,000 for a police line cruiser replacement. He was looking for 3, and we're doing 1. This would be an SUV. $11,000 for replacement of an HVAC unit over at the police department. Turnout gear for the fire department, $12,000. Payment 3 of 5 for upper replacement, $140,000. Traffic calming system, $10,000. This will be put out in front of, hold on. This will be put out in front of the LG North School on Plain Street. Then the school department, year 2 of 3 for a minibus payment of $22,000. One of their minibuses has reached its end of life, so this would be $22,000 for year 1 of 3 for the new one. Then highway, year payment 3 of 5 for a Peterbilt truck, $36,000. And for the Holder tractor, payment 4 of 5, $33,000. And then the bucket truck for the tree department, $53,400. And then water and sewer, under the water department, $34,015 for a Dodge Ram pickup. And $850,000, they're replacing wells 5 and 6. So if you look at the next section and start at the bottom, it's easier. The total for the capital request is $1,300,165. $34,015 will come out of water surplus. $850,000 will be borrowed, and that'll be paid back through water receipts. And then from the capital fund, $416,150.
Question on the borrowing. Given the value of that, I'm assuming that's for the replacement of wells 5 and 6?
It is, yep, both of those.
And then that would get paid out of the debt service, out of the water sewer, or probably the water.
Water rates, yep.
Okay. So ultimately it comes out of the water department?
Correct.
Okay.
Mike, is that 850,000, is that something that they had planned for like 6 months ago when they initially raised the rates and reviewed that with the residents?
Yeah, because Frank had this in his plan last year.
Okay.
That's a future.
So we
So-
shouldn't, sorry, Jeff. go ahead.
Nope, go ahead, Renee.
I was just gonna say, so we shouldn't expect any other rate increases other than what they've already identified and communicated.
I am not sure, but they will be coming to your meeting next Thursday. You can ask them that.
And do you know about, for the replacement for the wells, like the condition that they both are in, that, is there an opportunity to do one later and stagger it?
It's better for them to do them both now when they have the people mobilized and they're there. They won't have them both shut off at the same time, but they'll move from one right over to the other one.
And what's the condition of them? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 would be the point that you definitely have to replace it?
Frank would probably tell you down 4 or below. They're in well overdue. He said they should have been done 10 years ago.
So you mean a 10? You said 4 and below.
I said there'd be 4 out of 10. There'd be, is 10 good?
10 being the worst.
Okay. Well, then they'd be up around 7, I'd say, at least.
Is it, Brett and Mike, do we have to vote on this now, or could we wait until we hear more from them next week?
But say something on them.
Do we have a meeting next week?
We're having so much fun doing these video meetings. I just pleaded with them to have another one.
Picturing all around. Yeah. It's huge.
If you're not talking on the line, can you mute your phone, please? Or Mike, could you assist them? And oh, there we
Yep.
go. We got it.
In terms of other water capital stuff, I know they had talked before about some of the water towers also needing to get done. Are you aware of any on that, or is that something that we'll have to ask them next week?
Let me get to their future years.
Yep, there it is.
I think that they were speaking about the Cottage Street, the metal tower, that I think they wanted to replace that similar to the one in the center of town. And I can't give you the exact timeline, but they've talked about the fact that they're going to have to do it. But
It's
I
up
don't
there.
know.
It's up there now, 2022. They had it on their plan for.
No. So I'm trying to see, am I getting the sense that you'd rather hold off on the capital improvement budget until you hear from the water and sewer commissioners next week?
Yes.
No. Is that a problem, Mr. Units?
Nope.
Okay. Then why don't we table this until next week when we can speak with the water and sewer commissioners?
Okay.
Hey,
And Mike, when you reach back up for next week, can you make sure they come prepared to talk about the water unit at town hall, and if there's plans to bring that back online?
Okay.
It's a hot topic around town right now as the COVID restrictions are loosening up.
hey, Mike, the meeting's on the 27th, right? And so the warrant has to be posted on the 17th by close of business?
So it has, yes, it has to be no later than that.
So when are we planning on meeting? On Tuesday?
It's up to the board,
Well, Monday, we can't, Monday's too late, right? Because we didn't post an agenda.
right?
17th is too late because you have to post the warrant. So I guess we only have Tuesday the 16th.
Does the board's vote have to be made before the warrant itself is posted?
No, it's just the finance committee recommendations.
I thought the articles had to be recommended from the board to the finance committee. Because it's our warrant.
It's always, the finance committee has always acted upon the warrant articles prior to the board of selectmen.
Right, but I understand it's always been done that way, but I thought when I read on this that it's supposed to go from the Board of Selectmen to the Finance Committee. And I mean, you know, and that's not, obviously we've had several conversations from the Finance Committee where they've requested that they have the recommendations of the board before they have to vote on it, which we didn't do the past 3 times or 2 times that I've been involved. But I thought in reading either the charter or the bylaw that it went from us to them.
That's my understanding as well, Renee, and I think it ties into our responsibility to help prioritize how the investment needs to be made, both in operations and capitally. So it's hard to do that if they're voting on things before we even see it.
Well,
So I would say, Brad, that we make a recommendation before it gets posted. And similar last time, I don't know why we wouldn't, right? You're required to put the FinCom recommendation on there, but I don't know why the Board of Selectmen's recommendation wouldn't be, and the Planning Board, where applicable, wouldn't be posted all at the same time.
well, I'm not saying that it shouldn't be. I'm just saying, I was looking at a legal standpoint only. I definitely think that it should be posted with our recommendation also. It's just that unless we're ready to make a recommendation, we're not going to give one right now. I mean, I'm just questioning how do we go about this if we're not, you know, ready to make a recommendation now.
Well, I guess it goes back to us meeting on Tuesday, so that recommendation is there and can be posted the day that it's required to be posted.
I mean, that's fine with me. Does anyone have a problem with meeting Tuesday night?
Tuesday may be a challenge for me. I can see if I can get it to work.
Tuesday's fine for me.
It's fine for me.
How about you, Mary? Mary's not talking to me.
Sorry, yeah, it's stuck on me.
Okay. Why don't we shoot for a meeting? Well, have to reach out to see if we can get the water and sewer commissioners or the water and superintendent to be available Tuesday night to speak with us. Could you do that for us, Mr. Units? Okay, so why don't we'll hold off on this until Tuesday.
The next articles, 10 through 14, all have to do with the building projects. And
Yeah.
I did meet with the building committee on Tuesday. I think they had their meeting, and they were in agreement that they'd want more people to be able to be involved, and would support delaying this to a future meeting. They just wanted to emphasize that they would like some direction. If these get moved to October, in July, they would like to meet with the Board of Selectmen to get some direction.
Okay, fine with me. Anyone else like to?
And the superintendent of schools also said they'd do whatever the town was going to do on these.
Okay. Anyone else like to speak on the subject?
Yeah, Brad, this is Jack. I would just like
Yep.
to think that I think we owe the BBC a response back. I mean, they came in and presented to us in February, I think late February, or early March, and then COVID hit, I think the week that they were supposed to come back and we were going to make that decision. So the timing couldn't have been worse.
So in other words, you're telling me it was their fault?
But the COVID was their fault. I mean, I'm not an epidemiologist, but
Okay.
word. I would agree if we can put that on the priority list for once town meeting is done, to try to give them some direction, and if there's any further efforts that they can do to tighten up the case and presentation materials before town meeting, gives them and us several months of concerted effort to try to put the best case forward, and hopefully to what is a more economically viable time to do projects like these.
Okay, and hopefully by then we might have a clue what's going on with the economy.
That would be great.
I'd be surprised if we know that soon, but you know, I agree. And they do deserve our input, and I think to be thinking about anything financial right now is a crapshoot. I haven't got a clue what's happening with my bank account. Never mind the town financing.
You should find out, Brad. There's a lot of fraud going on right now.
Oh, I don't do anything.
But
there's one thing I am is a cheap Yankee, and anybody tries to do anything, it just they try to get me on my computer, and the first is I unplug the thing from the wall. So.
I mean, I think with the, regardless of what the financial climate is like in the future, like I said last week, I think we need to put this on our agenda and plan to vote on it so that at least when we're ready to move forward with it, it's clear on what we support. And then, I would say the same for the finance committee as well, right? At least from an options perspective, to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
So I don't know if we can plan now, like for a meeting in June to put that, or a meeting in July to put on the agenda to vote for this, discuss and vote for it.
Well, we can plan that, and in one of our July meetings that we talk about it, or put it on the agenda. Okay, I'm not sure. I could look at my calendar, but I'm not sure if they're cast in stone yet. But no, we definitely, as far as I'm concerned, we can put it on a July agenda. Anyone else?
So would you vote to remove these articles from the warrant?
We can just remove them. We don't have to refer them to anybody or anything like that.
No.
Okay, Chair would entertain a motion to remove Articles 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 from the annual town meeting warrant.
So moved, but not for lack of support, just due to the current climate.
Okay.
Brad, can we amend that to say that to be removed from the annual town meeting warrant and to be placed on the next town meeting warrant? whatever that might be, whether it's special or fall.
Yeah, we can. That's fine with me. Mike, you accept the friendly amendment?
Yeah, I suppose, yep.
Okay, so we have the amendment, we have the motion with a friendly amendment. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll go to the vote. Renee?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay. Mr. Units?
The next article is Article 16. This is, you already voted to approve this lease. This is a long-term lease agreement for antennas on the Cottage Street water tower. And this is with T-Mobile. And because it's more than 3 years or 5 years, the town meeting needs to vote to authorize you to engage in a 20-year contract on this.
Does anyone have any questions? If not, the chair would entertain a motion to support question 16.
So moved, but Brad, I do have a question.
Yep.
Mike, something that we have to handle in this town meeting?
Yes.
We can't put it off.
No, their current lease ends at the end of this fiscal year. And so we had to go out and do an RFP with the stipulation that this would start July 1.
Okay. Yeah, so moved.
Any other questions? Sorry. Do we have a second first?
Second.
Okay. Now, are there any other questions? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. Renee?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, Mr. Units.
The next articles would be the zoning articles. And I think Paul DiGiuseppe is on tonight, and he can give you a presentation on these articles.
Okay. Welcome, Paul.
Hi, everyone. So, Chair, if you'd like, I know Renee's here. She's certainly more knowledgeable about the marijuana overlay bylaw, and I was the one who worked on the Village Center Core District. So, I don't know if you have a preference which one you'd like to hear first.
No,
But Article 19 is the Village Center Core, Paul.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So, and Chair, I have a presentation ready to go. It would be about 10 minutes. I don't know if you want to see that or for me to just kind of speed through it.
whatever you feel most comfortable with.
Okay. Well, I will.
But first, can I ask a question? Is it the intent that we should go forward with this at this town meeting, or should we delay this for a future meeting? I'm sure the planning board has probably voted on this, but
They have. They have actually voted on this as well as the two marijuana articles in support of them at town meetings. So, I mean, I've been part of these conversations, and I understand, the issue of just wanting to minimize the number of agenda items. I guess my one pitch for Village Center Core is it really hasn't had much attention. We've had a few public meetings and a couple people have spoken. A couple had issues with some of it. Brian from Bog Iron spoke in support of it, but it hasn't been a lot of people who've expressed interest in it.
okay.
So,
Paul, can I ask the presentation you're talking about, is that the presentation that we saw when we had the joint meeting with FinCom?
it is.
Okay.
And I can, again, I think I'm going to go a little quicker through this, but let me pull this up. So I assume you can see this.
Yes.
Okay. And okay. So if it's okay, if I can take both articles, the Village Center Core articles together in this presentation, because there's actually two things that are tied together. This article, which creates the Village Center Core zoning district, but we're also applying this new district on some properties in our village center. And the purpose of this district is to create is to go from an area that is, largely very car-centric and to a more walkable, vibrant place. And I'll go through a little bit about what those elements are that create a more walkable, vibrant community. And the area we're talking about, if you can follow, there's my mouse. We're starting essentially around the Village Green, Wheaton College, and then all the way down to this is Honeydew right here, right across the street from the Yale. And then the property here, this is 60 West Main, which, as many of you know, this is the site of that proposed Cumberland Farms. You'll see that the Yale is not part of it, but these are all properties that either front 123 or 140, with an exception here, which is the parcel right behind, which is Bog Iron is attempting to purchase it for expanding parking. So just a quick look at, we look at this area on 123. Again, this area provides a lot of needed services, but where it's lacking is it's one of the things that it's really hard to get around if you're walking or cycling. It's not particularly safe. It's also just not real inviting or comfortable. There are some excellent local businesses like Wendell's and Bog Iron across the street, but it also lacks a distinct identity. That looks like most other parts of 123, and the goal of what we're trying to do is to create a real identity, when you've entered into the village center. It's also a place right now where there's limited gathering options. You have places like House of Pizza where people come in, or Bog Iron is probably the best example of a gathering place, but there's not many of them. And what we're trying to do is increase those opportunities. And then we do have a few developments that are strictly auto-oriented, like auto repair. And so we're looking at making changes or changing from the village commercial district largely. Let me rephrase that this area is largely zone village commercial. And I just want to show the difference between what's on the ground now in terms of the zoning regulations to what we could have. And a couple things I want to mention here that in terms of use, the biggest change is right now the village commercial is our most permissive zoning district, and it allows all sorts of commercial uses, but many of them are auto-oriented types of uses, such as gas stations, auto sales, drive-throughs. And what we're seeking to do in this area is tighten that up a bit and promote uses, really just allow uses that are more about gathering and walking, and putting in a requirement for mixed-use development, or at least have a requirement that it's first-floor retail, and then prohibiting more uses. But where the uses are more prohibitive under the proposed district, the dimensional standards are actually more permissive with Village Center. So this is the trade-off, but what we're trying to do is encourage more development in this area. So a couple big differences between Village Center Core and Village Commercial is you can get an extra story with the Village Center Core. Additionally, what it does too is it it restricts how far back a building can be placed off the street to between 10 and 40 feet. You could actually move the whole building right up to the street, whereas currently a building, the only requirement we have is it only has to be 10 feet off the road, but we have some buildings that are 85, 90 feet off the road, and that's just too far. So we're trying to put standards, design standards that create better approach that people have if they're walking or biking and putting buildings closer to the street. Additionally, one of the things that we're doing here is we're putting more requirements in for public amenities. And a couple things I want to mention here is that it's so important what happens between the building and the street. And what we have right now with Village Center Core really pays no attention to that. And so what we were looking at doing is a few critical pieces to it is making sure you don't put parking between the building and the street. Put parking in the rear or to the side. That's a real important feature that we really need to get right. We would also be thinking about stormwater differently. You'd still have to treat stormwater, but instead of it being a pond in the ground and really just doing nothing more than storing water, we want to make sure that these become amenities that people could, like a rain garden, people could sit around and enjoy, take in as part of the space instead of just, who of us really ever pays attention to a stormwater pond as we typically see them? So these are some things we want to do differently. And I think one point I want to make here too is that, we heard from a couple people about the concerns about what could happen under Village Center Core. But the same bad things could happen under the Village Commercial right now. But I think the big difference is the proposed district allows an opportunity for a great development to happen where Village Center or Village Commercial doesn't. It actually can prohibit some types of developments that you'd want, or you're going to have to do all sorts of variances and waivers to get there. And there are there were four properties that are currently zoned residential 60 that we're proposing to change. But really only two of them could see some reuse of it. Those two are the old library owned by Wheaton, and then the two homes right on the 123-140 intersection that are owned by Peg Dooley. The other two one is the Village Green. The only reason we're including the Village Green as part of that rezoning it's just to prevent us from having what we call a spot zoning issue. But the town has no intentions of doing anything with it other than keeping it as a park. It would, there's no intention to do anything with it. You couldn't anyway. And then that fourth lot is behind Bog Iron. And I don't know if Brian's still on the call, but again, this is an important part of their plans to expand. They need that property behind them to expand on their parking. I know they've been in negotiations with the family that owns that piece, but Brian has expressed to me that getting that property rezoned is really important to their plans. So Brian, Chair, if it's okay if Brian's on if you wanted to,
Definitely. Yep. The more information we can get, the better it is for us.
Brian, are you on the call still? Okay, well, we'll move along here. Obviously there are big differences between Village Center and Residential 60, but again, and Brian wants to do parking. The park, we're not touching. Hopefully, those other two buildings, they're wonderful buildings if they could be reused to do something different than what's there now. And then I'm almost through. This slide just shows an example of the top being what our code allows now and what we largely see versus what this new code would allow us to do. And again, you see the location of the building is up closer to the street with the new district. And you see how the parking gets shifted from the side to in the back. And then this also shows that we would have more public amenities like greater landscaping requirements, and also again things like stormwater. So these are just some examples nearby, like in Easton, what you see on Main Street of what our proposed district could do. This is a great example in Pasco, Rhode Island, of a brewery with actually affordable housing built on top of it. And then this is School Street around the circle in Foxborough, which I point this out because this is the type of use that we could see to help make more activities on the village green possible. I should point out the pictures that I've taken were all during the winter, so you don't see people out, but these places usually when the warmer weather have people, and that's the key part of all of this. And then this is an example from Newport where a building set back a little ways, about probably 40 feet, but what you can do with landscaping, what the new district would require if you want to set it back, but you want to create a great space for people to be. And again, this is the district, so should again want to mention that the planning board did vote to forward this to town meeting as recommended in the warrant on May 19th. I want to mention too that the board actually took a number of reviews at this. In fact, in January, a subcommittee of planning board and the zoning board of appeals met and reviewed a draft that we had given them. They met a few times, refined it. That version went to the full planning board back in February, which they made some changes, which became the warrant language. They met again in May, and the warrant language that they approved back in February is the language that you have in front of you now. So it's been very well vetted by them. And so they understand the situation with where we're at in terms of whether or not we remove the zoning changes or zoning bylaw amendments. But they wanted to just move it forward. So with that, if you have any questions.
Anyone have any questions?
Yesterday I took a visit to Foxborough yesterday, and it was beautiful, and I went inside the Fam Pines. It was awesome, and we need more in Norton. We need more places in Norton where people can shop, more people can visit, and more people can mingle. So it's time we need a better downtown in Norton.
Peter said it a lot better than I did throughout this whole presentation. So, but he's exactly right. That's what we're striving to do.
Okay, does anyone on the board have any questions of Paul?
No.
Yes.
Good, well thought out, Paul.
Anyone else? Okay. Does the chair, does the committee feel comfortable on voting on a recommendation on question 19?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm still not certain that these zoning articles, while I think overall important, if we should be discussing them in the June 27th town meeting. I think that with some of the resurgence that we're seeing right now in the COVID, with the states that have opened early, but also with some of the protests, it seems like, I don't know how far out of the woods we are, and I'm not certain that we should be doing anything that's not essential in this meeting.
I agree with you, Mike. But
I agree as well.
anyone else?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mike.
Right, that is why, we have the recommendation that, that the moderator would refer these back for further study. But in the meantime, tonight, as you go through these 5 articles, the recommendation would be, as you usually do, the Board of Selectmen would then refer these 5 matters to the planning board for its non-binding report, which gets submitted to the town meeting.
Okay, so we're not really voting on whether or not we should move on this meeting. We're voting on whether or not we like what we see.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So in that case, anyone on the board wish to move to support Article 19, or question 19?
Yeah, in the manner that the town manager had explained.
Yeah, could I make a suggestion? That
Certainly.
unless you want to do it differently, you could hear all of these articles to do with zoning, and then you could just refer all 5 of them back for to the planning board for their non-binding report. However you want to do it.
That, I mean, doing all 5 in a one sum motion is fine with me, but what is the pleasure of the board?
We haven't heard the other 3. We've only heard 2 right now.
Right, so you don't want to vote on this yet, then?
I think
Sorry.
and Renee, I certainly don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think what you're saying is that you're not adverse to taking them all at once, but you want to get the other 3 prior to any vote.
Well, I mean, you haven't heard the other 3, so yeah, like I can either talk about the marijuana overlay and then we can vote on them. I mean, I think we all agree on what we want to do, and you know, as we discussed earlier, Mike, I had provided some additional questions to Mike that we have not heard back from Lauren on. So, you know, I think what the board needs to understand is that if, you know, Lauren recommended to keep the articles on the warrant and refer them back to committee, right? But again, all of these articles, whether they be controversial or not, because they're zoning articles, if they get moved and they fail, you can't hear them for 2 years. So the question is, and you know, and Paul, I don't know if you guys have talked about it, you know, we certainly did from an IDC perspective, but until we get information back from Lauren on the best approach, you know, specifically surrounding to the open questions on, will we have to have additional public hearings, and will we have to make notifications, which did come to a cost, or it's a cost for the town. You know, I don't want to say that we're gonna refer them back, because that may not, you know, we may decide to do something else, or they may be withdrawn by the committees specifically that put them on there. But we have to get that information back from Lauren. So we're kind of at a crossroads. So I think back to Mike's point, the purpose here is for us to say, do we recommend these, do we not? And then the next step is for us to get more information and then figure out, do they remain on the warrant and easily and confidently get referred back to committee at the town meeting, or do we remove them? Do the boards or committees remove them from the warrant, or withdraw them, I guess is the better language.
So right now, what I'm hearing is that we will either support or not support each one individually, and then after we've heard all 5, we'll decide whether we should suggest that they be report back to committee.
No, the whether or not we suggest that they be referred back to committee, I think we need additional information from town council. That's the open question that Lauren has not responded. Well, the 3 questions that Lauren did not respond to. One on the process of referring it back to committee, and then again the questions on whether or not we would, if they are referred back or if they are withdrawn. Do we have to have public hearings again, and do we have to have the notifications again?
Brad?
Yes, Mr. Units.
I'm just assuming, say, that you want these 5 articles to continue to move forward and be taken up at a town meeting at some point. So that's why I'm suggesting that you go through the process, hear all 5, and then if you agree to send all 5, as is the protocol, back to the planning board for its non-binding report. And
So in other words,
that keeps the process moving on to the town meeting, and either will be heard in June or at a future date.
okay, so you're saying we do not vote on them individually? We're going to listen to the whole thing?
You can, I'm just suggesting it would be easier just to refer all 5 at one time back to the planning board for their non-binding recommendation. And you can also vote whether you support or don't support them in addition to that.
And that's what I'm asking members of the board, what their preference is.
So I think what I'm hearing Renee saying is we don't know if we want to refer them back to committee, correct? Because we still want that information from Lauren. Or
So even if we can listen to input from Paul and Renee on these articles tonight, you want to table the decision until Tuesday?
Well, I just want to make clear, you're not doing the referring back for further study. This is a standard process. If you were hearing these at the June 27th meeting, you have to vote to refer these selectmen have to vote to refer the 5 articles to the planning board for its non-binding report. That is the report that the planning board submits with the articles for town meeting. That has to be done. Now,
Prior to town meeting.
right. So then later, if you want to not hear them at town meeting, that's fine. But if you don't do this part, then you don't continue.
what's the drop dead date for removing articles from the warrant? Is it any time before the warrant is posted, which is the 17th?
Yes.
That was a yes, June 17th?
Yes.
Okay. So are we confident that we're going to be able to get that response from town council prior to then to answer Renee's question?
I would think so.
So, again,
So tonight, Brad, we take the normal course and we vote again, or either we recommend or we don't recommend,
okay, and
right?
then
And then
Tuesday,
next week we decide what do we do with the town meeting.
Okay. That's all I wanted, somebody to take me by the hand and walk me through this.
I know,
So
it's confusing because there are still variables we don't know.
But Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
articles at the town meeting, FinCom does. Am I missing something on that?
They're the ones that usually, I'm trying to think of the word, they make the motions.
Correct.
FinCom does, but we would possibly support them or not. Maybe I didn't get your question.
So so if we need to do something, if we need to move some action at town meeting to refer it to the planning board for their non-binding report,
You have to do that tonight.
oh, we can do, okay, fine. So that's what we'd be doing tonight.
Yeah, and at town meeting, we refer, and Mike, at town meeting, they would be referred back to committee so that they're not moved. So I think it's the 2 referrals that are causing
2 steps.
confusion. Yeah, 2 different ones.
In other words, no matter what we do, we can't make the sole decision ourselves. We have to be, we can make the first decision, but then it has to be upheld by town meeting.
But also, since these articles were brought forward by other elected boards or appointed boards, don't they need to be the ones to remove them? So we can't take them off. So we can say that we would like them to come off, but we would still need IBC and planning board to do that prior to the 17th, if that's the direction that we want to go.
Yeah, and I misspoke because I remember Lauren saying these cannot come off the warrant.
Right, they can only be submitted back to committee for further study.
Right.
Correct?
Correct.
Unless they're withdrawn by the committees who put them forth, correct, Mike?
I will check with her on that. I think it may be too late for that, but I'll double check with the answer that she gives us on the other end.
Okay.
Okay. Regardless of what we do final decision. Do we want to vote to support the zoning bylaw number 19? And then after we've heard all the bylaws or all the changes, we could at that time move to refer the zoning bylaws back to committee. So if that's the case, do we want to move to support the zoning bylaw number 19?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Anyone to tell me I'm doing it wrong? Okay.
Chair, can I just ask that you add the next article, Article 20, which is the map amendment itself?
Okay, so 19 and 20 is a package deal.
Mr. Chairman, I amend my motion just to add support of Article number 20 as well.
Okay. And can I have the second again, please?
Second.
Okay, thank
I
you.
think that was mine.
Any further discussion? Anybody else want to try to confuse Brad anymore? Okay, we'll go to the vote. Renee?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I think I'll vote yes. Okay. On to number 20. 21. We just did 20.
I think it's, do I have 3, 20, 21, and 22?
Just 21 and 22, I think. Paul, is 23 your other article, Paul?
That's the one deleting the need for signs.
Zoning bylaw amendment, chapter 175, section 12.2.
Yeah,
Initiation of amendments, and section 12.4 zoning map amendment.
and that's Article 23.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't have that in front of me, but yeah, that's mine.
Or
Not the
20,
planning boards, I'm sorry, it's the planning boards.
in 21 is the zoning bylaw amendments. Let me actually get the warrants.
My old age is showing because I'm more confused than I've ever been.
Well, nobody thought we'd be sticking a pandemic right in the middle of all this, so.
I was going to say, somebody could object to my talking about how crazy I'm going.
So Article 21, which we're on now, right?
Correct.
Article 21 is to amend the, for the marijuana overlay district, to create the marijuana overlay district.
Okay.
Okay. Are we good? Can I talk about that one?
Go for it.
Okay. So this is, I know we've talked about this multiple times, so I'll do it twofold. First, specifically talking about the bylaw and some of the changes since this was last presented to the board, and then just showing the updates to the maps as well. And basically, the things that I'll review right now are just the changes from the last time that we talked, based on the feedback that we had from the planning board, from FinCom, from this board. We went through and we made some modifications, so I'll focus primarily on those. And if there are any questions or if I need to go back and review anything just for reference purposes, just let me know.
Okay,
I'm
thank you.
trying to find a document here. So just quickly, if we think about where we are today and then, where we're trying to go with this bylaw, the warrant is specific to, the article is specific to an entire replacement. So we currently have language within our bylaw talking about a registered medical marijuana dispensary. That's the only language that we have where we've identified criteria around the special permitting and site plan approval process. Back in I'm going to get it wrong, but I think it's 2018, when we voted to include marijuana establishments within industrial areas, we didn't put any additional language within the bylaw. So Specifically, what this bylaw is, and that you know, we're hoping to seek approval on is to fill that gap. So it's to take not only the registered medical marijuana dispensaries, which are now called medical treatment centers or MTCs, but to take those and take all marijuana establishments and provide the appropriate requirements and responsibilities, empowering the Board of Selectmen with, well, I shouldn't say that they're really empowering the Board of Selectmen with anything, but empowering the planning board with some information that when they receive a special permit or site approval, that they have some guidance to go through. So, and that's in addition to what the state already has through the Cannabis Control Commission. So a couple of things that we had talked about from the planning board perspective and from FinCom, just in respect to feedback. When we looked at it, one of the things that we did is we initially had some language in there about adult use marijuana, and that was removed entirely from the warrant so that it does read throughout marijuana establishments and MTCs. And just to keep in mind too, because I'll talk to a couple items that we went back and added some additional language in. The marijuana establishments, it includes retail dispensaries, cultivation facilities, distribution centers, or transportation. It does not include, and we're making no changes in the bylaw to the social consumption. It's still, social consumption is still not permitted within the town in any zone, district, or through any special permit. So there's no change there. So we did clarify some language within the bylaw just to be up to speed on what the Cannabis Control Commission has defined or renamed. Additionally, too, we were specific within the language in the bylaw to say that any marijuana establishments or MTC shall be permitted by special permit in the marijuana overlay district, subject to the limitations imposed by the bylaw. So we wanted to clarify, it was a question that came through the planning board, that it was all by special permit. Additionally, I believe it was Joe on the planning board noticed within one of our definitions, the host community agreement, we had language in there that listed the legislative body of the municipality was responsible for negotiating the host community agreement on behalf of the municipality. That was incorrect. It was supposed to say the executive board because that's a responsibility of the Board of Selectmen, so that was updated. Sorry, I'm just reading through some of the changes here. We've had, you know, when we went through the criteria for this, as we mentioned, we were looking at specifically areas within town where there was commercial use, so whether it be within commercial zone districts or within industrial zone districts. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure of, just based on how really the town is set up, one of the criteria that we looked at was to have main access into facilities be through what we initially called, you know, the primary roadways. So we sought council's advice onto how we actually relayed that within the bylaw. So we added in a section under the additional requirements or conditions to read, on sites with multiple points of ingress, principal site access shall be from the more established thoroughfares to avoid disruption of residential neighborhoods. So that language was added and it was not previously in there. Additionally, there was some concern from the planning board in respect to issuing a license to an owner versus the actual location. So there was a change there within the special permitting process where the special permit or site plan approval shall be issued for a specific type of marijuana establishment or MTC on a specific site parcel and shall be non-transferable to another type of marijuana establishment or MTC. And again, that means it can't be transferred to another type. So if it were a retail dispensary, it can't be transferred to somebody who has a cultivation facility. So it would allow transfer of that if it was transferred to another marijuana establishment. And we updated that language to read, special permits and site plan approvals issued to a specific owner may be transferred to another marijuana establishment or owner or MTC owner operating at the same site parcel as an amendment to the special permit. So this doesn't require somebody to go through the entire special permitting process because they've already, in this case, they would have already permitted that location for that specific type of establishment. That was feedback specifically from the planning board to be, you know, what's the word I want, procedural around anyone who may change ownership or change ownership of that specific parcel. So just a note there. And then the town council provided us with some information in respect to, you know, if we wanted to know who owned marijuana establishments, that could be put within a condition in the special permitting process, where they can have language in there that any change in ownership of 50% or greater requires an update to the planning board. And then lastly, one of the things that we talked about in great detail, in that we actually, the IDC went back, sought more information not only from town council, but also from another town within Massachusetts that had a problem with odor in respect to cultivation facilities. So we had some concern with the process around the odor mitigation and the difficulty of enforcement. We reviewed it with town council. They indicated that the existing language that we had in the bylaw set the standard and acknowledged, you know, the challenge in the zoning enforcement. But they indicated, you know, the tools that were available to a municipality were fines and a court-ordered injunction requiring cessation of the offending behavior. The other thing that they had recommended, which we discussed, was to include as a condition in the special permit that it would provide a cultivation permit to be issued for a set number of years, for a term of what they said X years. So it could be 1 year or it could be 3 years based on what the planning board decided. And that renewal for specifically a cultivation facility would be subject to the applicant demonstrating that there have been no complaints or issues with odor during the prior term. So it allows the planning board to have more visibility there and to not renew a special permit if we had continued issues with odor from a cultivation facility. The other thing that we did recommend, the IDC requested that the board, you know, in addition to the language that town council had listed, that they consider language that would allow an applicant an opportunity to resolve the issue if there were an issue of odor, by demonstrating that appropriate remediation occurred in a timely manner following receipt of a complaint or identification of an issue with no recurrence during the prior term. So again, just, you know, if there was something that happened that was unanticipated, but they quickly resolved it, and we had no further complaints, that shouldn't stop them from actually renewing a permit. So those were the changes within the bylaw from the last time that we spoke. The other thing that we did change were in respect to the marijuana overlay district zoning map. So those were updated based on comments for a couple things from FinCom. So from the time that we met, somebody had expressed some confusion with the way that the maps looked, because there was, I believe it was called like the watershed protection area. It had a diagonal visual on there, and that's the same as the marijuana overlay, so it was hard to tell what it was. And then additionally, we were asked to include a satellite view within there, so it was a little easier to see the parcels and the building structures with the overlay. And I can share that if you guys would like to see those, what the maps look like now.
I'm fine with what we saw previously, but does anyone else wish to see the optional photographs?
Comfortable with what we've seen previously as well.
Yeah, I'm good with what we've seen.
Okay. Well, they are posted. They're out on the planning board website. And I want to make sure that we have the IDCs there. One of the last changes we did have, and I want to thank Paul for his research on this. There was a resident who was looking at the map and noticed some parcels that were zoned inaccurately on the version that we had. And Paul did some research, and that was updated through the research that he did from previous town meetings and how things were zoned. And then Serped was able to actually put that within the updated diagrams too. So we fixed a wrong in that process as well, and accounted for that within the marijuana overlay district.
Anyone have any questions of Renee?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple quick comments on this.
Yeah.
One, having participated in some level of in the creation of the overlay, the tremendous amount of stamina and attention to detail that the IDC had to incorporate into marathon meetings They did a commendable job pulling this together. It was again much like Paul's plan. It was very well thought out, and I think very meticulously drafted. I will say that there has been some, as I'm sure some of the members of the board have seen, there's been some concern about an area along Power Street in terms of some confusion on where the rectory of the St. Mary's Parish is and the two houses that are on the old St. Mary's land. Maybe being, falling to the wayside a little bit from the ingress to a neighborhood, or with the potential concerns with the smells from a cultivation or a manufacturing facility. I think that the IDC took it up the other night. Is that correct, Renee?
It is. So we did a couple things. We actually had 2 members of the IDC go to the area, one of which took pictures and, looked at traffic patterns as well. The other thing too, because it is like one of our initial thoughts was potentially that there was some spot zoning that occurred in the past, because we couldn't figure out how this industrial area had 2 houses zoned residential right in the middle of it. It's really odd. And if you're familiar with the area, it's where CPS Technologies is. So Paul was kind enough, actually, after the meeting, I asked him just to take a look to see if, there was any history there that would be relevant, to take back to the IDC. And he did go back through to the late 70s, and the zoning back then was labeled as like heavy industrial. At some point in 2000, the houses that are now zoned residential were changed to residential. I don't know when that was, but that's what's depicted right now. But in the early diagrams that he shared, it was all industrial with like residential around it, which is similar to today. But the 2 houses ended up in there, I think, between like maybe I'd have to look at the years, and Paul might remember this, but maybe between 2008 and 2017, those 2 houses were somehow rezoned to residential. But we did look at that, and we actually had a lengthy discussion and, took a revote on potential changes for that specific area.
Yeah, because now I'm familiar with that area. I live somewhat close to it, but I drive by it 3 or 4 times a day. And so I do feel like it was a spot zoning situation, and I don't really see any business, whether it be a cultivation or a retail facility, really finding a spot in there. I don't think we have a huge opportunity of loss of potential revenue or attracting business into town if we do take a look at that, especially if we have a little bit more time with these zoning articles being pushed to a future date. I'm familiar with that area, familiar with those homes, and I just feel that is, I would have concerns about the proximity to those families.
So Mike, we've talked about this in a lot of meetings. There isn't any zoned area that doesn't abut a residential area, right? So when we look at it specifically from that perspective, like we looked at too, it's not that industrial area is sitting out there by itself. It is part of a continuous line of industrial area within there, and that was one of the reasons why we voted not to make any changes to that. So, to your point, I know there were some concerns with traffic that were initially brought up. There is not a retailer that wants to go there. That's not an area where they're going to get the high traffic. And, I can say that at this point with a very high level of certainty, because those interested, specifically the 3 who have identified sites, they are all on easily accessible areas where commercial is more apt. The other thing too, remember, we're not just talking about 1 or 2 different types of establishments. There's opportunities to have a distribution center there as well. So when you think of it that way, this isn't like the marijuana industry. It's not as if you'd have very large trucks going through. We did talk to a distributor. What they were looking at was really, when we talked about volume, they were thinking more like 2 vans max a day that would be transporting. And like you think of a distributor, think of like Horizon Beverage, right? You have a center with a bunch of product, and they're taking that product to different areas. So again, all these things are considered when we looked at that particular area. And it's, I don't want to say too, I know you mentioned that is not the only area that we've had people talk about. We have talked about the 123 and 495 area. we've had conversation about, with others about the areas on 140 that are zoned commercial village that are now within the overlay district. So I wouldn't say that that is, you know, that's, we had responses from two folks on that. And again, you know, it was an item that we looked into and evaluated whether or not it was appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Renee? I guess you explained your point very well. In that case, do I have a motion to support question 21?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. Renee?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Okay. Question 22.
That's just the map amendment.
Just the map.
Right.
So in that case, I will entertain a motion to support question 22.
So moved.
Second.
Any further questions? I'm sorry?
I said I was just thanking Jack because I was choking.
Oh. Okay. Unless there are any other remarks about Mike joking, we'll go to a vote. And Renee?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
He's choking again. And I'll vote yes also. Okay. Question 23. I guess we're back to Paul.
Chair, this is a real straightforward one. This one just seeks to delete a requirement in our bylaw that requires that we put signs out where we have rezoning applications. This isn't a state requirement, and you know we have to spend quite a bit of money for really what's an ineffective way of outreach, especially since we're still required to reach out to abutters. We use social media. The Norton Media Center helps us get word out. The other changes associated with this was also just a clarification in the language about what we meant when we talk about amendments to a bylaw, which would include textual or mapping.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions of Paul?
Oh, Paul, this is Jack. Does this mean that we are going to do less to inform people of potential changes?
No, I think we're actually doing the opposite. Again, I think because we've really ramped up our social media using, Facebook and other advertisements. Again, we've also started with the, with the media center. No, I think we're going way beyond what this state law, and we're going to continue to work on it.
I think these bylaws were written when we had like a local newspaper, and basically that was it for notifying people. And so the only option other than that was like putting a notification up in the town hall and putting a sign up that you probably can't read because the printing is too small anyways.
Right.
And unless it happens to be at a place where there's a sidewalk, which there aren't many of them in town, and people go walking by, you can't read them anyway. So I think with the advent of the internet, that the amount of advertising on anything that's going on in town has just ballooned. So I think that the option of notifying people is so much more effective. That and the cable notification also.
That's right, plus you have me and the Peter channel, keep posting everything on Facebook.
So if anybody else has any questions, if not, the chair would entertain a motion to support question 23.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions? If not, Renee?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
I'm trying to, Jack?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay.
We didn't get our little cutout billboards in Brad's house. We were supposed to do that.
Oh,
So you can look around your table and see us all.
I know. Well, usually what I do is I write your names on my my warrant so that I can go down and check, but I actually did it with my memory that time. It's just that it's faulty sometimes. Sometimes I just can't remember who I'm looking at in my mind. Okay, so we've completed the review of these Norton zoning articles.
And now, Mr. Chairman, could you vote?
Yes.
Could you vote to refer the 5 matters to the planning board for their non-binding report?
Okay, does anybody have any questions about that? Chair would entertain a motion to vote to, I forgot the wording exactly. To,
Refer the 5 matters to the planning board for its non-binding report.
okay. The motion,
Articles that come from IDC. They're not planning board articles, are they?
The planning board has to make the recommendation
Gotcha,
to
okay, just wanted to make sure.
town meeting.
chair would entertain a motion.
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. Renee?
Yes.
Mary? Jack?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'll also vote yes. Okay.
And I don't, Brad, if I can just ask before we move on, I don't think Paul mentioned it for the 2 articles for the marijuana overlay district, but the planning board, did recommend those, unanimously as well.
I have that on my sheet. I don't know if you're, I have a scorecard on the planning board votes. I don't know, maybe I saved a form from a previous mailing. But yeah, the marijuana ones both passed 6-0. Somebody wasn't there, or someone must not have been there, because there was the other 3 passed 7-0. Okay, move on to review, vote on articles.
That's a double.
I was going to say, I thought we just did that. And according to our agenda, we have no old business. Town manager report, unless you've got something that you haven't written in here.
Yep.
Okay.
A few things. Carroll Advertising had their hearing today before the Office of Outdoor Advertising. And I hear everything went well, and it should be 2 weeks plus or minus for the decision. We had a pre-construction meeting today on the Route 123 East Main Street project finally, and the start date is July 11th. And the concern is they did say at the meeting that there are delays in deliveries on items made of steel, which the traffic signals will be. And so they figure from the time they order them 6 months. So I'm figuring if it's 6 months from July I don't know if you're gonna see them before the winter.
Yeah.
But they'll start on July 11th, with any tree removal or wall removal and pole relocations and the traffic signals as soon as they get them. We did have a meeting last week on Juniper Beach. There were representatives there from the police department, the fire department, the highway department, conservation, neighbor Paula Stearns and Dave Leonard from the Water Bodies Committee. And so some of the items, our next steps, just to let you know, one of the things that the police department suggested was that there be signage put out similar to what they have in the town bylaw for parks in town, that they're closed 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. and suggests we'll have to look at the bylaw and see if we need to change the bylaw to include this property. So we're going to look at that. They want also, the fire department was concerned about access out to the pond with their boat. So there's one section out there that's going to be signed off with fire lane signs so no one can park there. So when they come in, they're able to get their boat in and out of the water easier. We're going to look and see if there's any grants or if Serped has any hours to do a study of all the waterways and access to them for recreation, and look at what it would cost to survey that property out there to find out exactly where our limits are out there. So it was a good meeting, and want to thank everyone that involved, and we'll follow up. And Keith is also, when he makes the signs for the fire lane, signs saying no fires on the islands, and we're going to put them at Juniper Beach. The police department was going to talk, or the fire department was going to talk to the owners of the Chinese restaurant to see if we can put them over there in their parking lot. So it'll have the rules and regulations, no fires, and the times. And anywhere that there's access points along the reservoir, we'll put signs up.
Mike, has there been any further conversation about going across there?
There was some discussion about that. There wasn't, that was one of the suggestions why maybe we should survey the property and see where our limits are and what actually we can do out there. And the problem with the gate was the same thing that came up previously, was who's going to open that gate, close that gate. I know just didn't seem like a possibility right now, but we'll keep looking at it.
Mike, I'm sure the cost is much higher for the electronic gate, like Jake, why did I call you Jake? Jack was mentioning earlier, because Jake and Gate, that Jack was mentioning earlier, but can they look at even a low-end automatic one that could run on a timer, at least to open and close?
Okay.
The other thing too is, and I was going to mention this in my update, but now that we're on the topic, I can mention it here. I received a couple pictures from residents that are there, and we had the conversation previously about the size of the boats that should be on the res based on the depth of the water. I think, Mike, you had a meeting, maybe, I can't remember, maybe you and Jen or you and somebody else with the state, right? And I don't know if there are requirements that we can post to, because, and I'll figure out how to get this out of Facebook and send it to you. But like some of the pictures that I got of the boats, I mean, the boats didn't look appropriate to be going in the res. They had pretty big, I mean, they look more like speedboats, I guess, you know, they're really long boats with a big engine. I'm not a boater or, you know, very up to speed on my boats, but, yeah, I don't know if that's something that they can consider as well, to have some guidelines about really specifically in that particular area where the water is shallow, like what vehicles are appropriate to be in the water.
And I'm like you, I'm not a boater, so I don't know, but people that were out at the meeting are, so any information you have,
Okay.
send it along.
Okay, thank you.
And Mike, on something like that, I know we had mentioned at a previous meeting that the state was going to send the boat down, and possibly we could tap into their knowledge also on how, if the boats should be on that body of water, and if not, how can we restrict it?
Yeah, I know that there's a lot of bass boats that go out there, so it all depends on, they could be flat bottomed and they, you know, their motors don't go down. I don't, but we'll check with the state.
Yeah, I know some of those bass fishing boats look a lot, they look huge, well, they are huge, but they don't take a lot of, it's a draft, and the outboard does not go down that deep into the water itself. So.
I just want to say, this is one of the issues for me that, like, it's like a splinter in the finger that doesn't quite come out all the way. It's always there and irritating, and I feel like, even just in my short time here, it's like a cycle where it ramps up before the summer, and then we talk about it a lot, and then run out of time to do anything, and then it gets pushed off until later on. I know it's a massive pain point for the people in that area, so I just think, even if it's not feasible to get something done, everything takes longer than it should in this day and age. I really think we should try to keep up a focus and a commitment to try to figure out something for the folks that are there that have so kindly come in time after time to talk about their experiences with that. Because by the time realistically we were able to do anything, it's going to be after Labor Day, so we've already missed the season, and I just don't want us to feel that what's the point? You know, let's take it up in November, December, and then it's too cold.
I agree. It's something that it takes so long to try to get answers and to get moving on it that by the time we are ready to move, the season's over and the stimulus to act kind of goes away. The splinter isn't hurting anymore, so.
I think it's the fifth time that we've probably talked about this in a little over a year, and nothing, very, very little, I think, is different. You know, we've had some good conversations with Chief Clark and the neighbors, and some ideas come forward, and then, you know, at the end of the day, the situation is still the situation, and where people are still struggling. I just feel personally like I'm letting them down by not either saying definitively there's nothing we can do, or here's what we're going to do. It's stuck in this limbo gray area of there's some things that we can do, but we can't get our act in gear to figure out what that is and when it's going to happen.
I wish I could disagree with you. I wish I could disagree with you.
And I realize, you know, all levels of government function at a slower speed than probably we would like. And there's a lot of complicating factors that most people don't have the ability to understand and see, and myself being one of them. And there's so many different confounders that come up with this, like the timing and the property lines. And I get that it's hard, but, you know, it's been years, probably even longer than I know, that it's been hanging out there since the mid 80s, Renee, when somebody dropped some rocks at the end of the street to make
Yes.
started that. So What's that? My math skills aren't so good, but I think that's about 35 years, which is almost as old as I am.
Plus, I walked by there lots and lots of times on my trip to downtown Norton because I live not too far from there and I see cars parked there near things, so I agree with the signage.
Okay.
My bit. I've been stuck in the house for way too long, so I'm getting a bit ornery. I was getting inflamed.
Okay. Do you have anything else, Mike?
Nope.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll get some answers on the Juniper Beach and any other boat ramp around the reservoir. Selectmen's report and mail. Who wants to go first? Renee, you just popped up on my screen.
Excellent. I had the only thing to discuss for mail, I believe. So I don't have
Okay.
anything.
Oh,
A surprise.
Anyone
Well, I
else?
did have something.
well,
You missed your chance. Sorry.
No, I did have something, but I brought it up when we talked to Mike. So,
Gotcha. I have 3 things, and I will try to be brief on that. I was reminded by a resident on Freeman Street that we had previously talked about a raised or sunken manhole in the vicinity of 40 Freeman, that when the cars hit it, it sounds like a bomb's going off. I've been over that in my Jeep as well, and I can attest to the rattling that provides. I think this came up in the winter, and we had marked it for Keith to circle back to once the weather improved. So Mike, if you wouldn't mind just reaching out and putting them towards the top of the list, that would be great. That's 1. 2, there was the note we were forwarded this morning that also deals with the water sewer project down Main Street. I'm assuming that that's something that can get discussed next week, or is that outside of our purview? I looked at Brad and Mike on that for what we're supposed to do.
I think we're having the water and sewer in next week, so we could, I think it is basically outside our purview, but we can always bring up the letter that we did receive and see if we can get an answer from them.
Forward that to them so they can be prepared.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
thank
Mike
you.
was on it, so that's great. And the last one is just a conversation I had seen before we came on. Are there any animal noise ordinances within town, or does that fall into the fact that there is no noise ordinance? As somebody who has donkeys and roosters, brain and cockatoo living outside of
You should contact the animal control officer.
Okay. But is there, in fact, an ordinance or bylaw? So there's bylaws for chickens and things like that?
it sounds like a Mary question.
He would be able to address it.
Okay. Very good. 3 for 3, so that's me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Anybody else?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mike.
if I may for a second, I just wanted to, I had something similar to Renee, but I already brought it up. As I think about it, I just wanted to commend the students, the teachers, and the stay-at-home parents who became homeschool teachers unexpectedly on their resiliency. It seems like a very, it was a tough year for the kids in school, as everyone knows. They lost the spring with the COVID, but they also lost the fall because of AAA. So all the activities that were outdoors, they couldn't do. It was a really challenging year for the kids, and I think that it's been impressive to watch how everyone's adapted to the new environment. So I just thought we should mention something about that, and well done.
Yeah. And also to add to that is the class of 2020. They've lost out on a lot of their senior year, and all the events that would go along with it, such as
And the memories,
prom, class night, a normal graduation. And I mean, I have a niece who falls into that category. And I mean, even people as old as I am remember back to graduation and the good times that they brought into your life, the memories. And I want to, first of all, congratulate the Norton graduates of 2020 and almost apologize for the whole world for the fact that, you know, your senior year kind of got ruined, but it'll be a senior class that's remembered for quite a while.
It's unique.
But as a, you know, a consolation prize, I guess, that will always remember you, but unfortunately, there are memories that you have been cheated out of. And, but best of luck to you in your coming endeavors.
Did anyone get a chance to watch the car parade on Saturday? That was really a sight to see, and a couple hundred kids in the cars, and the short drive from my house to St. Mary's, the streets were packed, and there was just people out, and it was really nice to see the community come out for the kids and help give them something different, because they couldn't have what everyone else did.
That's right, I was there for that, and I even videotaped it and put it on Facebook.
Yeah. I saw you.
Not able to attend it. I did see it on the Peter channel.
Yeah. And it's just that, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that really makes my heart warm with this community, is the way people come together like that. It was a really neat thing, and I think the school committee and the school system put that on. Kudos to them for finding different ways to celebrate these kids, because they deserve it.
Yeah, definitely.
It was good. I was on the end of that. I think Jackie at the beginning of it, but I was down at OGN, and it was nice to see, you know, even the elementary teachers there who, you know, some of them have taught some of the kids that were graduating, and even some who are fairly new where they're supporting them. So it was a really nice thing. And, you know, it's tough because you can't do much right now, but, you know, I thought the seniors, and, you know, you saw a couple going by with tears. You know, it's sad anyway, leaving high school and then doing it, you know, in a car. And I don't know if anybody saw, and I apologize because I meant to write down the student's name, but somebody had tweeted that I believe she was born in an ambulance and she graduated in a car. So I think her future, she should have high hopes to do, you know, something in transportation. Maybe she'll get married in a plane next.
That would be unique, wouldn't it?
It would. Stories to tell.
Yes. Okay. Anyone else have anything?
I guess one last thing, since we're talking about community events, there was the Black Lives Matter rally on Common on Saturday. There was a rally and then a candlelight vigil, and from what I heard from folks that were there, it was incredibly respectful, a really touching ceremony. A lot of people showed up and just showed support. And I know Chief Clark was there and talked to a lot of folks there to do some community outreach. So really thankful that we have him in charge of our force, and being a force for good out in the world, being an example of good policing. And just thank people for their community engagement.
You're absolutely right, and thank you for bringing it up. Okay. Okay, we'll move on now to
Peter was. Oh no, Peter wasn't at that one.
Warrants. I'm reporting that as chairman, I approved payroll warrant PR 20-24 for the week ended May 30th, 2020. Warrant dated June 4th, 2020, in the amount of $1,539,159.49. Invoice warrant AP 20-40, dated June 4th, 2020, in the amount of $1,577,159.49. $809.97, and invoice warrant AP 20-50 dated June 11th, 2020 in the amount of $429,502.51. Minutes to be approved. We have a few. I assume that the amended minutes we can approve.
Can I take one quick peek at them? I don't know if anybody's looked. I haven't had a chance.
I mean, I've read them all quickly, but I don't read them with the eye for detail that you do.
I saw Jen's note about waiting for updates, and I didn't send her any, and then I saw the email come through. I just hadn't looked at it. Let me... it's only just that one section on the address.
Right. It's just, it'd be nice if we can knock off some of the minutes, especially where we're losing Mary.
Well, luckily for you, Brad, you have extended her stay one more meeting.
Geez, I'm never getting out of this seat.
Actually, I think we should postpone the election.
I think Lucia's on. Do not say that.
No, that's the first article on next meeting's warrant.
So, Brad, I'd like to move to approve the amended minutes from February 6th, 2000 and February 13th, 2020, and February 13th, 2020.
Okay, all those in favor of the amended minutes of February 6th and February 13th of 2020? Renee?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Has anyone had a chance to read any of the other minutes?
So, Brad,
Yes.
I was just going to ask about the October 19th. Those ones have been out there for a while.
Yeah, we got to get those approved.
Clear those out.
Yeah.
so those are the ones, Jack. I'm not quite through them yet. That's the one that they were, we received the email on those, I think, on April 1st. So I was trying to get through. We have one more to do that came to us on March 31st. I'm halfway through the other ones, but if you remember, they weren't written by Jen, and so I was having trouble following them. But that's second on my list to get through, just because we received it second. What I was hoping too is, Brad, is it possible? I know I've seen this done at FinCom where at their the meeting following the previous meeting, they just take 5-10 minutes to go through it. When they're actually during the meeting, and then they vote on it. Then can we once we get caught up, can we start doing that so that if not everybody has had a chance to read it, then we just do it during the meeting? Or the previous?
Whatever works is fine with me. It's just that I hate to see this list.
We may all be retired before we're caught up.
I tell you what, just because Mary has another meeting with us, if we want to put it on the agenda for Tuesday, I will try to rip through every single one of those.
I mean, as many as we can. I'd like to try to get as many of them approved as possible. So, if we're not ready for any more this evening, maybe we could look to do some reading this weekend. But half of my problem is I read them, but evidently my eye for detail is not as keen as Renee's. So if we could just work towards as many as we can and approve them next Tuesday.
Sure. I know we just got one today, right? We got one from the 20th on. Looks like it has 4 different documents in it.
Right, I believe so. I'll tell you the truth, I didn't read the one that came today.
No, I came at 5:17, so I don't think anybody did.
Yeah, I haven't either.
So, okay,
Okay,
we'll see if we can put a dent in this on Tuesday then.
yeah, for Mary.
Oh, thank you. Now I
Just Mary.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I would have thought maybe like a drink or something, but no, you just go ahead, we'll do minutes.
Although for
With
every
social
set of minutes
distancing,
we approve, Mary has to take a shot. And we do it.
that's like a very good idea.
Aren't you glad that we waited so long, Mary?
Oh, thrilled.
Okay. So, we'll work on those for the next meeting. So our next meeting will be Tuesday, whatever the date is, I can't remember.
Look at the calendar.
16th.
Tuesday, June 16th.
16th. Okay, Tuesday the 6th, I should have been able to figure that out. It says Thursday the 18th. You'd think I'd be able to subtract 2 from that, wouldn't you? So Tuesday the 16th. At 6:30?
That would be best for me.
Okay.
I'm fine with that. And then if our guests aren't able to make it at 6:30, maybe we can start with the minutes.
Right, we can start the meeting and our guests can come whenever they can make it. Okay. I see on the agenda that we have an executive session. Is that still in effect, Mr. Units?
Yes.
Okay, because I didn't see a separate number to dial into.
I don't have a separate number either.
A meeting invite was sent separately to the board.
By email?
Yes.
What time did it get?
We got it a couple days ago. It was listed at 7:30. I can send you the link in a text if you want.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I need it too. I don't see anything from Jen earlier in the week. Good afternoon.
It came from Charlene, and it was sent on Friday, June 5th at 10 a.m. Oh wait, I'm on the wrong one. Hold on. It was sent today at 2:04. Or I'm sorry. God, what is today? Is today Thursday? It was sent yesterday at 2:04 p.m. I'm sorry. I can send it. Brad, you need it, and Mary, you need it.
Yeah, I need it.
Send it to the board again, just so you guys know.
You just sent it to us again?
Yeah, let me know if you can access it.
Mary, it went to your Norton account. I'll forward it.
Yeah, that's helpful.
And Brad, it did for yours too, so I'm going to forward it right now to your...
Let's try what? Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I don't access my Norton account.
Hey, Renee, did it go to my Norton account as well?
Oh, let me look, Mike. I'm sure it did, so I can forward it to you as well.
Thank you.
Okay, I just got it.
Jack, you're good? You have it?
Pieces. Yep.
Okay.
Did you text it or email it?
I emailed it to your other account.
Oh, there we go. Got it. Yep, just came in.
Is there something, you're welcome. Is there something that we have to read to
I got it.
this? Okay.
Brad, you gotta start.
Okay, I gotta hang up and dial in.
No, you've gotta read the declaration.
Oh, I don't have the declaration with me.
Do you want me to read it in your stead and then someone else can read the motion?
Yeah, pretend you're Van Twilhurst.
I declare under General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A, A3, that the purpose of the executive session will be to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with union and non-union personnel. Because a discussion of strategy in open session could have compromised the purpose of the executive session, and with the board not to return to open session at the conclusion of the executive session. Can I make the motion too, or should I?
I can make, Mike, I can make the motion.
All right, there you go.
Okay,
I move that the board go into executive session under General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3 for the purposes and reasons declared by the Vice Chairman, and with the board to not return to open session thereafter.
okay. Okay.
I can't second it.
Okay. Okay, and this requires a roll call vote, which we're all doing anyway. So Renee,
Yes.
Mary,
She's already there.
Oh, I'm not there, hang on. Yeah, I'm here.
Just say yes.
just say, okay, well, yes.
Yes.
Okay, Jack,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
I also vote yes. I'll hear you and see you in a couple minutes.
Thank you for everyone who attended.
Good night, everyone. Good night. Good night, Renee.
Everyone.
Good night,
Good night,
everyone.
Peter.